Prove to the court that I am sentient.
This is absurd. We all know you're sentient.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to the series where I build a graphical text editor from the ground up, starting from just the terminal. Okay, so I have good news. Just open up the editor. First of all, you will see that I don't have to specify file names anymore, to begin with at least. I can go ahead and open up the roadmap. As you can see, I can open files up, and yeah. So, first things first, I want to thank everybody who's been watching thus far. It's been really great being able to interact with you guys, and I've really been enjoying making this series, despite some minor hiccups here and there. And I am pleased to announce that I am done with this editor, with this particular iteration. And so what's going to happen next is I'm going to start work on the graphical text editor, or at least on components for it. The following videos that are going to be a bit more, they're going to be a bit longer, it's going to be going a bit more in depth, and the goal is that whenever I work on a project, on a particular part of the editor, that I won't have to return to it in order to fix it up. Now, obviously, that's not likely to happen. Mistakes will be made, and I'll have to revisit things, but the goal is to avoid having to revisit as often. So, as you can see here, I did finish the copying and pasting from the system clipboard, and I can also open and close files while still in the editor. So just go ahead and open up, let's do screen.cpp. So I made a few changes in here to help fix some issues regarding the Unicode display, because I was having trouble with that, and so I had to go in and make some adjustments. So here I have it set up so that basically every time it detects the a certain size Unicode, it will do its thing. So there's that. And let me go ahead and move to the text buffer, because that's where most of the changes really happened. So I added a few more states to the state enum, and that was to help make parsing and highlighting a little easier. I added this getchar so that I can get Unicode characters properly, because again, before it wasn't working quite right with what I was doing here. I've added this little section here, and all this does is whenever the selection is on, it turns the background to a light gray. So if I go ahead and I press Y, which is the command for yanking or copying, it will highlight the background. And if I press enter, it will select that and copy that. I can also do the same similar thing with D, which is going to delete, but I'm not going to press enter, I'll just cancel that. I can also press P to copy what's on the clipboard. So that's all working wonderfully. I made some changes to how I handle the highlighting, though it still is roughly the same. Mostly just some changes to kind of how I order the operations, how I go through the buffer, things like that. Nothing particularly groundbreaking, just fixing some minor issues. So everything here is very similar to how it was before, but again, minor changes to help make the thing work properly with the selection and the changing the backgrounds and things like that. Now, if I scroll down, I'll show you guys the selection functions. So here, all this does is start the selection, sets where the index is going to go, And if I hit cancel selection, then it undoes that. Delete selection will delete the components that are selected, the characters, and it decides whether or not to remove from the back or the front based on where the selection start index is in comparison to the cursor. And then get selection really just returns or populates a buffer, and that buffer is currently held in app.cpp. So go ahead and move over there. All right, so if I go here, I reorganized this a bit and made it so that the file opening logic is a little lower down so that it can be skipped without causing issues. And I also changed update mode line because of some changes I had to make to load string. I had to adjust this, and so this is the result of that. Still has the same function though. And here I have added these functions to convert to and from base 60. So the reason I added them is that when I was looking into how to copy and paste, the way that appeared to be the easiest for using a terminal was using something called OSC52, which somebody in the comments on, I think it was episode 7, if I'm not mistaken, mentioned something about that. And I figured that it'd be good to look into, and as it turns out, it is the easiest way to make this work. However, it requires that you convert the ASCII string into a base 64 string, which is essentially an encoding that it's still a binary encoding, but it uses these characters as the elements of that, and each of these characters represents 6 bits. It's a little clunky, but I managed to get it working. So, and this just converts from base 64 to ASCII bytes. So here in normal input, I made some changes, mostly just adding commands. So this paste command sends a command to the clipboard and tells it to return the contents of the clipboard. This Y command is what starts the yank selection. And then down here I also have D, which starts the delete selection. So here in select, I made a few changes. I added this little feature here so that when you press enter, it will, based on which command it was sent initially, it will either get the selection or it'll delete the selection. And then I also added in the normal mode movements, just made the most sense here. I haven't implemented anything in replace mode. I honestly don't use replace all that often, so I might decide to remove it. I'm not entirely certain on that. But either way, it's not that important. So in global, this is where I catch the clipboard's contents. So this escape close bracket 52, that's the OS command sequence, and this specifically wants the clipboard, and then all the rest of it is the contents of that clipboard. And so all that stuff gets sent to the 2 bytes to be converted into ASCII bytes rather than base 64 as it is currently. And then that gets inserted. So that's really the gist of what I did. And so really, I mean, that's basically all that I need. I decided to go ahead and drop the requirement to be able to display 2 files at once. It's not really necessary, and if I really need to be able to see a header file, I can always look at it in another terminal. And resizing is not something that I do regularly, so it doesn't really matter, and I can always just close and reopen it. So realistically, those 2 were not terribly important. And so I'm happy to call this done. And if there are any minor changes that I make at some point in the future, it's not anything that I'd be too terribly concerned about. I mean, I would just make them and then move on. So really, I think that I'm ready to move on to the next stage of this project. So, next episode, I'm going to get started on that, and it'll really just be kind of the project setup, creating a GitHub, or at least a Git repo. I may not necessarily create a GitHub right away, but at the very least, just a Git repo in my on my local machine, and then get started, get the application loop and everything like that running, and start kind of going into some of the topics that I think are going to be really fun. And I've been working on some stuff this past week other than the copy and paste stuff, which I've been having a lot of fun with. So I'm interested in showing some of the fruits of that. And yeah, that's basically everything. This one's been a little bit more rambly, and it is what it is, but I'm really happy about this. So thank you so much for watching and for interacting with me and this material that I've been working on, and I hope you guys will enjoy the stuff that I'm coming up with in the near future. So thank you very much for watching, and I hope you found this interesting and or useful, and I'll see you in the next episode.